Hello, everybody. Welcome to my talk. Today, I would like to talk to you about web components and also design language systems. They're pretty fancy right now, so I think that is a very important part of the future of the web development. So, the talk is Stera web component, next generation. I guess that everybody here love Star Trek, right? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try to do it dynamic, so I would like to participate. If somebody have a question or something, you can interrupt me. And also, I'm gonna try to have enough time at the end, so we will have some questions. A time for questions. Okay. It's working? Yeah. So, hello everybody, my name is Joaquín López. I'm the head of front-end development in Singular. There you have my Twitter, my LinkedIn, just in case you want to be in touch. So before I start, I would like to tell you a little about my company, about Singular. Singular, as you can see, is one of the sponsors of the event. We are a digital company. Our headquarters is in Spain. We're based in Spain, but we are in 4 countries. So who we are? We are an international team of expert hand-on information technology problem solvers that helps companies leverage today's most cutting-edge digital technologies to create value and growth. Well, marketing guys, always writing this kind of thing. So, well, we are a technology company. We work for other companies to do their projects or to make real the project that they have. Our team, this is the managers and the bosses. Here in Dallas, we have Borja. He's sitting around here. As I told you, we are in 4 different countries. Here in the US, we have offices in Pittsburgh, Boston, New York, Miami, Dallas, and Birmingham. And also we have like 100 people in Mexico. Well, last year we opened Chile office. It's brand new, so not very, not so much people there, but yeah. These are our companies, some of them. Mostly here in the US, we are focused in the banking area. But also we have other kind of companies, the pharma, retail. This is our technology stack. There is a lot of technologies there, as you can see. I group it by view using the front end, back end, integration analyze, platform, very mobile and wearables, and continuous integration and quality assurance, QA. So, do you know some of them? Yeah. Okay. This is what we call DKC, so it's like digital key capabilities, or more or less has the different areas of specialization that we have inside the company. So you have software development, big data, analyze, VR, and augmented reality. And talking in numbers, the 91% of our employees are engineers. We have more than 10 million downloads of the apps that we have created. That we have created for our clients. More than 27 million of people using the digital channels that we create for our company. So it's a lot of people, a lot of visits per second. So sometimes is very challenging to maintain this kind of applications. We have more than 2,000 microservice architecture running in the bank. We also are member of BIAN. BIAN is like it's like an association. It's a banking industry group with the objective of make the banking technologies standard and be able to reuse from one company to another, not have to create all the thing again. So I talking to you about this because it's one of the morals in the talk. So the idea is not to redo constantly the things, is try to reuse and don't reinvent the wheel. Right? So okay, let's start with the talk. Yeah, so we're gonna talk about web components. Okay, so who are you at work anytime with web components? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. Okay, so any framework today has a model of components, right? Angular has its own model, React also, Ionic, Stencil. I mean, there are a lot of framework and there are a lot of model of components, but they are not the standard. So the web component arrived to try to standardize these technologies and make them more reusable in a way that you can share when one company, one group to others, or maybe inside the same company, two different projects or two different groups can reuse the component and make the project faster. So Mr. Spock said that basically when you have a lot of choices, it's very difficult to know if the one that you choose is the correct, right? So the idea here is try to reduce the amount of choices and choose one that is standard and compatible and reusable in all of them. So here is when components arrive. I want to think about web component. I want to imagine them like Lego pieces, so Lego blocks. So you can what you basically do is design and construct and build your blocks, your Lego blocks, and after that, using composition, you can build whatever you want. But you don't think, okay, I'm building here a toy. No, you are building the blocks, and after that, using that blocks, you can build a toy, and you can reuse that blocks to build a different toy, right? So web components are different. They are not like other web standards that came before. They are like low-level primitives that let you define your own HTML elements. So, for example, if you are using HTML4 or 4.1, you have the video tag, or you have an audio tag. So if you want to put like MP3 or a video, something like that, you have to use JavaScript and create any kind of API or using maybe Canvas or something like that. And we have to wait until HTML5 arrives, so we get this new tag, right? But the idea here is that you don't have to rely on some people that are gonna define the tag element in the future. So you can create your own HTML tags with the different specifications that you need. And to do that, we have 4 specs. These are standard specifications. They are the technologies in which web components are based on. So we have templates, we have shadow DOM, custom elements, and EAS import or ES modules. That is the same. It's the same name. So basically, template let you do a client-side templating. So before that this specification appeared, the only way that you have to do a template is in the backend. So you have to use, for example, a Gate in Node, or you have to use PHP to generate in the backend. You generate the HTML with the CSS and JavaScript, and then you send that to the browser, and the browser renders it for you. And you cannot change that in the front end. So with this template specification, you can do it in the front end. The shadow DOM, everybody knows what the DOM is? Yes, sir. The document object model. So it's a tree, right? It's a data structure that has the shape of a tree. And each node in the tree is an element in the HTML. So the thing is if you change something in the DOM, you can have a collision with the rest of the element that is in the DOM. So using the shadow DOM, you encapsulate a subtree of the DOM that is specific for your element. So if you make a mistake, or if you use the same name in CSS variable or JavaScript code or whatever, your code doesn't collide, doesn't impact in the rest of the code of the application. The custom elements is the specification that let us define the name of our HTML tag. For example, they have a characteristic that has to be 2 words separated with a hyphen. So that's the way in which we know that this is a web component and is not a standard tag in HTML. And JS imports are, or JS modules, is a specification that let us import one piece of code inside another piece of code. So this is very important because it's the way in which we can build libraries. You can modularize your code and reuse it. Okay, how is the support of this for specification? Well, you can see it's very good right now. Of course, I don't know why Internet Explorer is the one that is a little behind the others, but they are working on it. And you can use a Polyfill. Everybody knows what is a Polyfill? No? Okay, a Polyfill is an emulation of some features that the browser doesn't have natively implemented in the browser. So you can detect what a feature that you want to use is natively implemented in the browser or not. And if it's not supported by the browser, then you load this Polyfill, that is a JavaScript library that emulates using JavaScript these features that the browser doesn't support. So it works. It's a little slowly than the native one, because you have to run it with JavaScript, but you can use it. Okay, what are the requirements of a web component? Well, we are talking about this. So a web component has to be a HTML element. All the logic has to be inside him. Must not affect other components. Has to be requestful with the environment. Has to be encapsulated, so no collision with other JavaScript or CSS code could occur. And multiple instances of the same web component must not interfere with other. So it's not only about not interfering with the rest of the code, but also you have no interfere with yourself. Okay. Okay. So how we use them? We have to use them as building blocks. We were talking, so that's why I like to imagine them as Lego pieces. So following atomic design, you know, everybody knows what atomic design is? Yeah. Okay, you are from UX, so yeah, you know it. Okay, so atomic design is like a theory in design in which you, instead to design the page of the app, you design small pieces, small blocks, that they call them atoms, And then reusing these atoms, you build more complex components, right? It's like molecules, and then organisms, and then you create templates, and then you create the pages or the apps, right? So, for example, imagine that we want to create, I don't know, a login page, right? So instead to do the login page, we divide that login page into components, small pieces, and we say, okay, we're gonna have one input for the username, another input special with the password that's gonna show asterisk or dots, something like that, and we're gonna have a button to log in, right? So these are 3 different components. So you focus in develop each of them isolated with a demo environment that in which you can load that component and you can work on them, and when you are happy with the results, you go to the next one. One that you have these 3 basic, that should be the 8 atoms, then you mix them inside another bigger component that imports the smallest one and create the login widget, right? That should be a molecule. And you can put that login widget inside the login page, having the controls to send the information, to call a service, to get the response of the service if the login was good or not. You can show a message to the user. You can do other things, so that becomes like an organism template or something like that. Right? So more or less this is the idea. So we're gonna focus in develop these smallest pieces, and then using composition and aggregation, we're gonna use them to make something bigger. Okay, the last approach of this is webcomponent.org. This is the logotype, the icon. You have this a portal in which you have different sets of components that you can use. You can import into your apps, and you can use them. And you have all the documentation there. It's very cool. And also, if you are working in your company in your project with web component, you can publish these components in order other people can reuse them also. Okay, so that primitives, that web components are designed in such a way that we can build, and we should build, libraries in top of them, right? Because the specifications are a little tricky to use. They're very low-level JavaScript code. So there are some libraries like Stencil, Polymer. There are a lot that bring to us some. I like to say something like syntactic sugar, something like that. So make our life easy and let us focus in building components. So today we're gonna talk about Polymer. Polymer is a library from Google. It's a project. Now the new versions of Polymer is called litElement. So what's Polymer? We already say that. What's Polymer? Now Polymer is not a framework. Okay, Polymer is not Angular. It's not React. So that libraries, Polymer or other libraries, are not here to compete with other frameworks. They are here to make like an accessory for them. So if you tomorrow change from React to Angular, you have not to redo all the work. You have to redo maybe your data model and the controllers, but the smaller pieces, the components, you can reuse them and you can bring it with you to the next version of the same framework, also a different framework, different technology, if you want to migrate from one to another. You don't imagine how expensive it is for one big company that maybe is 4 or 6 years working with Angular JS, move to Angular 7 or Angular 8. It's a nightmare, and you cannot use probably nothing of your code. Huh?
That's right.
Yeah. When you are working several years with a code base, you used to have it very good. you have all the tests, unit testing, integration testing, functional testing, and when you have to move to a different technology and you cannot bring this technology with you, you have to start again from scratch. So that's the idea. So in the technological stack, we have the web platform in the base, that is the browsers. On top of them, we have the web component that you can build with litElement or not, any other library. Then you have the frameworks to do all the routing and the data models, the controllers, and you can build application on top of them. So it's Polymer ready for use? Yes, it is. There are different versions, but yeah, it's production ready, and it's being used for a lot of companies in different projects. We have a lot of projects in production already working with these technologies. Okay, I want to stop here and travel to a different thing. So we're gonna move to talk about design language system. Okay, so do you know what that DLS is? Okay, Lily, you know everything. Okay, so design language system is something like a little philosophical, but more or less it's like a set of a collection of reusable functional elements from the design perspective. Okay, this is not about code. This is about the design. But designers and developers have to work together constantly. So you have to make real what a designer imagined and designed. So the best way to communicate between them is use the same language. So that's why these DLS are so important, because it's a common way for the both words to be working together and communication. So the basic part are colors, typographies, sizes, border. These are smallest pieces of information that you use to create the elements. So what we get if we work with a DLS? So we get efficiency, because we don't need to redesign always the components, so you can reuse. And you say it's always the same, right? It's to make the cost lower using reusability. You have consistency, because if you have to release a new app, and you have to release an Android app, an iOS app, and a web app, you have to keep the tone in your design, in your conversation the same for the different users and the different channels. So consistency is very important. And scalability is like a rest of the other two, right? So when you are very efficient and you are constant, you can build more apps in the same time, or go to the market in less time, right? So this is an example of a design language system from the design perspective. So this is a sketch file, and you have there, you can see that you have colors here in the top. So you have the palette of the colors that we're gonna use. So you, as a developer or as designer, can use any other color than the one that is in the palette. This is the sizes of the typographies, how the paragraph gonna look like, and other basic components, right? So the different uses, how a button has to look like. So as you see, they are very atomic elements. They are not very complex design of pages or something like that, because this is a tool for the designers. So this is a tool, so the designer can create the pages or the apps based in this component. Okay? So more or less, are the same, are the visual design atoms, but for designers. So how do we work with this kind of thing? It's very cool that the designer has it, and maybe you have a library in your Sketch program, and you can import that library in your design or designer team, so they can reuse that library. Okay, this is the bottom, drag and drop, and then you can create something. But this is, we can do more things with that, right? So this is the flow work. How we can, sorry, a workflow. How we can work with these elements. So we call them design tokens. So a design token, a token is a piece of information that you have there and you can reuse. So it used to be a color, size, the name of a typography, the amount of border that you have in an element, this kind of thing. So we create them, or the designer create them in a sketch file in a specific way. So we can extract that information from there and do the single source of truth, right? Like this, like a repository information in JSON with a data model. So you can store that token, and then using a token engine that is like an automation is a way to generate code in an automatic way. You can generate the specific code that you need in the different platform that you are supporting. So in the web page, you can have CSS, SAS, or JS. You can do also your documentation for the designers or for developers. And you can support also mobile platform or other design files for designers. So this is an example of one code that we have there. So as you can see, this is a JSON object. We have color, then we have an alert, that is the component that we're gonna do, and we have the background and the text color, right? And when you hit the button and turn on the generator, the magic happens, right? And then appear this. So this is like an example of library writing in JavaScript. We get this token, but now they are usable for us as developers, right? So they are const that you can export, that you can import in your component with the same code. Okay, gonna travel back again into the web components. Let's build an element, right? So the element that we would like to build today is this element. Yeah.
Is there a place to get a library or standards-based tokens?
Yeah, of course. There are a lot of people working right now with the design language system. So you have some boilerplates in the internet, and also some of the companies that they are more open. They are sharing the design language system, so all the developer can build or can reuse the elements and create more apps. Or it's like a press kit. So some of the companies are looking at it in that way. So you can work with them, but mostly are something that is private for the company. It's something internal. It's a tool that they use by the people that are working there. So if you work maybe with material design or something like that, you can have something similar. You have the design tokens or the design templates for Sketch or Photoshop or something like that, and also you have the library of components for the developers. Right? So this automation that we were talking about, the generation, is a little more new, more fancy. For example, Airbnb is working a lot in that way. They are developing a tool that they call Lona. You have these like compilers for the tokens, and also you have a visual tool to drag and drop components into the page and things like that. This is still in beta, so you have to download the code and compile yourself using Xcode or something like that. But you have it. I have it in my laptop.
Yeah, it reminds me of a lot of, like, a long time ago, a lot of different, they call it like information utilities, where you would use a tool to define a library of stuff. Because you use the tool, you can generate this program message you start from.
Yes, exactly.
But it seemed like the problem was that you didn't use whatever it was you picked consistently and completely. It wasn't that.
Yes. Yes, it reminds me also to Delphi or C++, C++ builder, things like that. So in that case, the DLS was the Windows interaction model that was very easy. So it was very easy to build a tool that you can drag and drop, and you have this property inspector. You can manipulate the element there, and you can create apps. So
there was like an ECMAScript for tokens or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
But it doesn't exist yet.
No. I mean, they're creating them, but not yet. Mostly the compilers are there, so you can use it as developer. But if you are a designer and you have not so much knowledge about coding, you would like to have a tool like a program, an app, and you can use drag and drop. So this is not ready yet, but they are working on it. That is like the same grail of this. Yeah. No problem. Yes. So okay, we're gonna build this, right? This other banner. So we're gonna call it other banner. Okay, I spoiled myself. You can see if there are two words separated by a hyphen, because this is a custom element. Okay. So the code of our other banner JS, we're gonna use litElement. So the basic version gonna look something like that. Here we are a very simple example of the specification, right? So this is the import. With this, you can have other pieces of code of the library inside your component. So here we are getting the library, and we are getting the HTML helper for do the tagging string. Then you have a class with the name of your component. They have to be the same name of the HTML tag, but without the hyphen and in camel case. Then we have the template. Here is where we render the component and we write this HTML code inside JavaScript using these tagged strings. And this is the local DOM of the element. So this is a little difficult here. So you have two DOMs to document your model. You have your local one, and you have the external or the live one, right? So you have two differences between both of them. Here we added also some static CSS code using a tagged string, and you can see we have to import here the CSS helper that we already haven't. Sorry, that we haven't before and we need it now. So we can create this CSS code for our components. It's gonna look something like that, right? Okay, and how can we use this component? How can we say the browser how to use it? So this line is part of the vanilla JavaScript specification, right? So is the use of the APA of the custom elements to define that the tag alert-banner gonna be supported by that class. Okay. And then in your HTML code, you use it like any other tab, right? Obviously, you have to import the library in the top, the script, and also you have to import the JS file of the component before you can use it in the HTML. And it's gonna look something like this. Okay, it's nice. We have it now and it's working, but it doesn't look very usable, right? Because the text is always the same. So it has no sense to have this hard-coded text there in another pattern. So we would like to be able to use it dynamically. So to do that, we're gonna use something that they call slots. So a slot is something like a placeholder, like a empty space that we have in our component, and we can fill with external information, right? So we have to put a name for that slot. In this case, it's message. Here I want to talk about this. So light DOM and local DOM. So the light DOM is the word outside your component local DOM, right? So the local DOM the DOM that you have encapsulated using shadow DOM is your local DOM. It's all the templating that you have inside your component. And the word outside is the light DOM. Okay? So here we have the name for the component. And we have our component outside. This is the light DOM. This is outside, right? So here we create a container, and we put the text or the content that we want inside. And you have to notice that the slot had to match with the name that you put inside the template of your component. So in that way, we have the component something like that. With the message being injected into the component from the outside world. Okay? As the other component that we have in HTML, we have attributes, and we can modify the behavior of our component, of the state of the component, adding this attribute. So now the state is different. And also you can manage that using JavaScript with this check true. So appear this attribute there. So we would like to do more or less something similar in our component. Okay? So we're gonna create a property. The property names will be shown, will be a boolean. So the values can be true or false. And in the constructor, I guess that you all know more or less how to work with classes. So you have a constructor. In the constructor, you define the default values of the properties of the component. So you have this shown property initialized to false. Okay? And then we can use this property inside the template. So we say, okay, if the property is false, so it's not shown, the hidden attribute that is a standard attribute in HTML will be true, right? So you have to see that this is using a negation here, right? So what that means is if you have not the attribute there, you have not the alert banner. But when you add the shown attribute, then the banner appears. Right? Okay. And how we mix this with the DLS that we were talking about. So this is like the in the schema that we were talking. This is like a more isolated part of the schema, focusing the web technologies. And you can see we have this JSON repository. We have the token generator. Using web technologies, in this case, litElement, and using all the architectural thing with Node, npm for the dependencies, Git for the repository, whatever, and other web components, we can create our atoms, molecules, and things like that. So the idea is to use this token, design token, into our component. So that was the JSON of the design token. When we generate it, we create this library of tokens, and then this is the code of our element, and we want to use them inside here. So the first that we need is to focus in the CSS. We have a background and color, background for the background color and color for the text color. They are CSS properties, and they are writing right now. But we want to be able to change them using the design token. So we have to import the dependency of our token library, and we have to use that tokens into our code, right? So here you have to use this unsafe CSS because the CSS helper only accepts plain CSS strings, and this is like a value, so you have to use that function, but that's all. You use the token object in which you have all the values of your library, and then you still have the same result. But if the designer change the value of one of the color from blue to other, and you hit the button, okay, H, okay, then you get it in green automatically without change any code in the component, in the library, or in any other place. And of course, you can be a little more creative. You can change more colors and have your Halloween version of the component only for a while, right? So you can create templates for all the web component library set that you have in your project. Okay, so also think that always there is an element for that. So when you start working with this, before create your own component, look in the libraries because there are plenty of them, and maybe you can take one of them and reuse them, modify a little to fit your needs. Check the webcomponent.org in which you have all these sets of elements of the different companies, different groups all around the world. Use the platform. This is very standard and is the correct way to have good practices and to be sure that your code is valid as long as we can. Okay. We are hiring. So lifelong and prosper. And I'm Joaquín. And if you have any question, I'll be very pleasure to have it. Any questions? Okay.
For example, so we use also design systems.
Okay.
I'm a designer, but one of the problems that we face is that when you want to change an element symbol, you are thinking about very specific things. So
Okay.
when changing the symbol, it might affect different instances. So it might
Yes.
break some unexpected things. So do you have
Yes.
any remediation plan, or how do you balance that plan ahead?
Yeah, when you are working with the DLS, the design language systems, there is a very, very important stage that is the research. Has to be done by researchers, and the idea is to look all the different cases that you could have later. So trying to define them from the beginning. But if you haven't and you have to make some changes for a specific use, you can create another version of the same component, or you can overload the component. So in the design system, you can have like this is like a variation of that component, and then in the development side, you can have this like an if or something like that, using some attributes and say the type of the component or the variation of the component is, I don't know, model 1 or model 2. Depending on the value that the component receives, gonna have one behavior or another. So you can define behavior, you can define styles, and you can define even the components using the design system. And have a look also to the patterns of it's like a behavior. So how this component gonna behavior in this specific way. So you can create a pattern, and you can create another pattern if the component if you want that the component behavior change in a different case. Okay. Yes.
What about tying objects? It's not JSS, so it's returning HTML.
With the litElement?
Yeah, it's in a component. So what about tying object for your JavaScript?
Yeah, you can have it. You can have all the methods that you want. It's a class at the end. So you can have methods. You can for example have properties that they are calculated in real time. So they are I don't remember the name right now. Generated attribute, exactly that is the name. So basically the value of that attribute is the result of some calculation that you do. So you can dynamically change the logic of your component, the styles or whatever you need. You can change it. And also in the templating, you can have some small logic inside, the same that you have in Angular or handlebars or something like that. So you have ifs, you can iterate between them. So the templating is very rich.
So then it doesn't care. The component doesn't care.
Yeah, at the end, the render method gonna get the results of all the things. Yeah, they are working now in have the same approach that React is using with this virtual DOM. So basically, React calculates all the changes of the DOM in the memory virtually, and then make a div with that changes and the real DOM. And they only render the differences between both of them. So the update of the DOM is very, very fast. You have not to update in every change. You calculate all the change, and then you only render the differences.
But if you had your own components, is it going to go along? So there's things in shadow that cause all the events?
Now, if you want to communicate between components, you have to use, to communicate that, you have to use events. And if you need to pass on data, you have the details of the events, right? The payload of the events. And to communicate down from the parent component to the child component, you use data binding. So you have a property that is binded to another attribute in the component. So anytime that the property the parent is updating, the value in the attribute is going to be updated. So the inside the inner component is going to have its own property updated with the value from the father. Yeah, to go up, you use an event with the payload, and to go down, you start binding.
Yes.
Yes.
litElement is just the new name for Polymer.
No. No. Polymer at the beginning was only Polymer. Now it's Polymer Project. They call Polymer Project. So the idea of the objective of the goal of Polymer was to bring to the public these web component standards. That was very complicated some years ago. So they created a library, but as long as the browser has supported the different technologies native, the blueprint of the Polymer library is smallest. It's more near to the platform, right? So you have less dependencies from the library, and you are using more the technology that they are native support by the browser. And now they create this litHTML library, so you can in a very fast way render the DOM using this JavaScript library, and using that library they create litElement. So it's like the new version of Polymer, but with a different approach. It's more similar to React right now.
This is why you were saying that Polymer is not a framework.
The Polymer is not a framework because they are not focused in create controllers and data models and routing. You can do it because you can create components and you can I mean, we already do. The event web page is created using Polymer.
Would you call lit elements, lit HTML, would you call that a framework?
No, it's the same. Event is smallest because it's only a base class to build lightweight and fast web components. Okay, no problem. Okay, thank you.